Welcome. Thank you. I know you are busy and it's the end of the day. So this session for the people that are watching is going to be a short intro to Victor, a brief look at kind of where you've come from, because you've got a really interesting story. You didn't just start in FinOps. So yeah, we'll hopefully talk a little bit about your background, where you've come from, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the areas that are important to you and some questions, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll keep it to 15, 20 minutes, just in case, as I mentioned before offline, if I'm really bad at this, at least the viewers and the listeners only have to put up with 15, 20 minutes of this. Is that all good?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I was gonna intro you and just kind of like talk about the ambassador role and how we got talking, and me spotting your really cool posts on LinkedIn and thinking, well, this is the guy that we need to be involved with, because he obviously knows quite a bit more than we do about FinOps. But I'm kind of thinking maybe I should just flip it to you and say, well, actually, Victor, why don't you give us an introduction, who you are, your background, talk a little bit about, where you started from, because it is a super interesting one. And yeah, we'll take it from there.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, I am a cloud DevOps engineer now. I work mainly managing infrastructure, and I recently got engaged into FinOps because I saw there was a part that was missing on my side about the cost optimization side. And then I was working with another guy on a FinOps task, well, most on the cost optimization, and I researched about it, and I found kind of my called ikigai, which is like what the purpose of life. It's in Japanese with all the four circles, so everything merged into that point. Because I am a very passionate guy on finance and investing. I've been uh, taking companies, for some time now, and I'm or about the stock market and all those terms. And when I saw like capex, opex into cloud, was like, okay, this is a match for me, and I should
This is something
dedicate
I've got to get
myself.
involved in.
Definitely, because I know something about that, and I know a lot because I dedicated myself to cloud. So in terms of the background, I've been working. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you've got to tell the listeners or the viewers about your software development background. So that's kind of where you started in IT, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I started programming in Python, mostly related to AI, just when AI wasn't that trendy in 2018. So I started with image processing, Python. So I started making web development and AI development. So I was tired of the AI because of it's very heavy in terms of time and resources, very scientific. It's real complex, as we all know now. And I moved to a more DevOps practical side. So when Docker was uh, already mature, but yet evolving, I was making the web development and the deployment of things because I wanted things to work and not to be just proof of concept that I'm getting tired of as I get older. So that was my initiative. I started developing and everything, and then I got landed into a cloud developer job. So Lambdas, DynamoDBs, all serverless things. I was very impacted of how that worked, and it got me into cloud. Like I moved to cloud and how that was handled,
When you were
and then.
doing that, sorry to
Mhm.
cut across you, but just a really interesting point, when you were doing that software development piece, I
Mhm.
can imagine cost was important. It's never, a software developer doesn't just kind of like completely ignore cost, but it's not in your terminology or language or psyche, and it's not something that you're super responsible for, is it? Do you
So
look now
in
back onto that with, you look at your younger self and think, wow, if only I knew about some of the costs when I was developing stuff or building it in the cloud.
So I guess that didn't happen a lot because our projects were small, but definitely it was a part, especially when we moved to cloud. But that
Yeah.
was a bit isolated from us. Like we didn't have the information about the cost. Like we didn't know about if the serverless Lambda, for example, weren't good or bad optimized, unless we had like we were more focused on performance,
Yeah.
like if the request was quick or not, or where the connection was not, rather than does will this cost too much? We don't
Yeah.
care that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
that's
think
kind of the
sometimes a lot of
problem.
software developers they get hassled and like, you know, you should know about the cost of this or that. And I kind of get that, but I also think, well, hold on, these terminologies and this subject hasn't always been exposed to software developers.
And sometimes you don't have access to that info,
Yeah.
which is something that may happen. Like, I understand companies and projects isolate certain information either for privacy reasons or for for whatever reason, actually. But if you want your engineers to take into account cost, then they need to see like what they are doing, are what's
Yeah.
costing what they are doing. So
Yeah.
if you don't
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. And then do you think when you moved to kind of doing more cloud-based development, the
Mhm.
stuff that you're doing on the side, so we've talked about your passion for finance and investing, is that what that's kind of ultimately what drew you into it? You know, you mentioned a few moments ago talking about the CapEx and OpEx and the differences. That's eventually what kind of drew you into the FinOps world, right?
Definitely. Like, if I wouldn't have that, let's say, passion or that, willing to learn about finance, if I wasn't that kind of person that just want, for example, more performance or more scalability, I don't care that much. Like, I like scalability and those things because it's related to my work. But I am I have a nature to finance and to analysis, and that part landed me into FinOps. Otherwise, I wouldn't be like talking to you here.
It's the perfect combination. It's interesting, and I'm going to I'm going to dig myself a hole here, right? So my background is SAM and ITAM, and I got involved in FinOps maybe 4 or 5 years ago when Software One, who'd bought my software, and it was like a ITAM review tool. They wanted more cloud stuff in there. So between myself and I, we kind of discovered FinOps and we added some questions and a review capability. And what blew my mind at that point was FinOps as a practice is very much like ITIL is for IT. It's a framework.
Mhm.
It's not a certification. But when you start to peel the layers away, um, you absolutely need a technical person that's super technical that has an appreciation of the financial side because without those two completely separate places coming together and having a true understanding, you really can't do FinOps because you so need some technical detail around it. And that's why I talk about when I came across you, I was like, I remember talking to the team after I'd gone off the phone to you. I was like, I've met this really cool guy and he's got a software development background, but he's like super interested in finance. So that's how he's ended up in FinOps. And we're all sat around the table going, this guy, that's probably the best scenario you can get, a software developer who loves finance. And I don't know if there are many more of you, Victor, that fit that mold of those ingredients. I'm sure there are, and we'll get to see them, but not many.
Yeah, definitely. And from what I get from my past experience, when I was like, changing jobs and moving into different, I wasn't sure about my career. I was sometime in my career I wanted to change to like the finance industry, like develop for finance. So probably most of the people that work for finance in terms of technology, either trading, like more investing side, or banking. That's why I think there are a very well established FinOps sector in banking. That's where are people that are passionate about finance, because if they are good on and they stay like a lot of time there, probably they like finance and they are very technical and very good. So those sectors related to finance, definitely
Yeah,
there are people that are
yeah,
should be very good at FinOps. That's where I
yeah.
would search.
No, I agree with you. You make a lot of sense in that respect. Um, so we've said that we're going to try and do these sessions for 15, 20 minutes. I had a few questions. I sent a few of them over. I mean, none of them are that difficult. Hopefully you've seen them. You did mention that you'd had a quick read of them while you were traveling. If we were going, if for those readers that are just coming into FinOps, right, or if
Mhm.
someone from an ITAM background has been told that they've got to start looking at FinOps and looking at their cloud environment, if you were if you were going to give three top tips to someone just coming into FinOps, where they could look, whether it's reservations, or what would those top 3 kind of recommendations be for your average individual that's stepping into FinOps?
So my first one is check the framework, like actually get a picture and understand the framework, not in depth, not in whatever. It's large and it's difficult to get it everything, but just understand what's the goal, and where are you at. Like if you are a item, or if you are an engineer, or if you are a product guy, where are you at? What's your role? That's the first part that I would advise
Okay.
people to situate themselves within the FinOps, because FinOps is very large, and that's okay. And so you need to know where you're at. If you are the FinOps, if you are in the FinOps team, or you are an engineer that works for implementing FinOps in another part of on any product. That's something that is, for me, that happened to me, and it was like, okay, I am an engineer that works in a business that then has a FinOps team, and then we have, how should I behave that way? So that's something that is very, very important, at least on my
That's
on
a
my
good
point.
one. Yeah, I go with that. Are there any others can you give us, like a number 2 and a number 3 recommendations?
Sure. Definitely don't get afraid of the size. Like there are a lot of terms, the language especially. Don't get afraid of the language, I would say, because there are a lot of terms, very variable in terms of depending on where you are at. You have to learn one thing or the other. You probably don't need to learn them all. So that's top 3. And then the third, I would say, learn and engage on LinkedIn communities, things that we are doing right now, because that's where you can find people that are really valuable. That's helped me a lot to situate myself, know what to do, and then move myself into the field.
Hey, on that third point, what we should have done at the beginning of this, or we should do at the end, is just remind everyone that you have your own newsletter, and we can
Yeah.
maybe put it I'll ask one of the team to put it in the link or description on the Abstrato platform and the community hub, so that they can go back and follow you and get all of your news and updates. So yeah, I like those top 3. I think the point around point 2 around the language, and don't get too intimidated by it. Yeah, I'm going to put my hands up and say, a few years ago, I think I told you this story off air a few weeks ago. I purposely forced myself to do a contract for FinOps, and yeah, it scared it scared me to death. I realized then that, and I'm not technical at all, really, in any detail, but I remember talking with some of the Microsoft guys about their well-architected framework and the detail, and I don't mind admitting it, Victor, that after about 4 minutes, my eyes glazed over and I just couldn't keep up with them technically. But it's interesting, and I found myself getting a little bit overwhelmed with all the different technical terms, and then trying to apply what I know from an ITAM perspective. And I kind of had to just eventually back off it a little bit and appreciate that it is a different game, and the two will come together and will be very symbiotic. They will work together.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're an ITAM person, you don't need to learn everything that FinOps has in 2 weeks. You can't. Just
No.
let them come together naturally. Okay, I like that top 3. The one question that I did have, and I know that you might not be so sure about answering this one, but I'm really curious.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I look at in the FinOps world is, there's lots of data, and it's relatively clean data, but there's lots of it, and you've got to be able to contextualize it and then apply it in the real world. And we've seen lots of talk over the last few months about how AI is going to come into FinOps, and sure, okay, I guess it is. But with my kind of simplistic hat of looking at FinOps, I kind of think, okay, well, AI maybe does the first bit of analysis, but in terms of the contextual understanding and then execution of making those changes, is that not where a human person will come into play with AI? I'm interested to kind of get your kind of your view on AI and FinOps and where it might go or where it might not go.
Yeah, so I've talked about this in some posts and before, and my thought is still the same. So this is the curious thing is that it's a double-edged sword. Like AI for FinOps, like you need AI to improve FinOps capabilities, but also analyzing the cost of AI is a part of FinOps, right? So it's like the same thing in two separate topics. So, but in this case, AI for FinOps, there would be, or how I see AI is like probably AI will be able to make suggestions about your data, provide you with tips or what to do, what not to do, what's this data about, like explaining to you a bit like as a reviewer, like what's this data all about and how you can make connection and how you can see instead of like going deeper into it, like the AI will do it for you. And then the human part is what data do I value right now? Like based on the suggestion from the AI, should I pick this one? Should I pick that one? Why should I pick that one? Would this be value? Would want this? What's this all about? And that's where the human part comes in, like modeling the data, getting the data compacted, and then selecting, okay, this is the data because of whatever, and this is the KPI that I'm going to need. And this is difficult that the AI will be able to pick the right thing for you.
Okay, I get that. Yeah, and that's so okay, that was a lot more detailed and comprehensive than what I was kind of getting across in my head. But it's very much so the human sits in the middle and the human then says, okay, well, AI, go and analyze that piece of data there. Go and do all the deep dive and the number crunching for me and come back with that information. And then I can read the results from that information and then make another decision to say, okay, well, I'm going to go and check something over here now. And then with those data sets, I can make the decision about what I should be doing to make sure, I've got a cost efficient environment in the cloud. It's definitely
Yep.
an interesting one. And so the reason why I asked the question, because in ITAM, traditionally, you've had hardware and it could sit in the cloud and it could be on premise. So big bits of server or laptops. Then you've got the software side, and invariably on the software side, on-premise software has always been quite hard to audit. So the way the audit tools would pick the information back, there'd be a lot of data and you have to really clean and tidy it up. Then you've got to try and match it to a license. The licensing information isn't always collected. So with FinOps, you've got that data there. You know, whether it's GCP, Azure, AWS, the data's there. You've just got to go and find it, and it's relatively clean. With ITAM, the data isn't always there, and it's not always clean. So trying to use AI when you've got, let's say, a muddy or a dirty database that isn't potentially accurate is quite difficult from an AI perspective. Yeah. And I think that's where between the two practices, FinOps has kind of got the jump on ITAM for being able to adopt AI, unless Sam can figure out a way from getting the data at source, whether it's a software publisher or whoever it might be. Okay, I think we've done our time. I can see now it's 21 or 22 minutes past 5 or 6 at your end, because you're in sunny Madrid right now. So
well, not that sunny today.
Oh, is it not?
No.
Do you know? I don't know if I told you, but I went to Barcelona a few weeks ago, and it was just a family vacation. I'd never been there before, and it was beautiful, but it rained for 2 out of the 4 days, and we were like, "What are the chances of it raining?" But actually, it was great because I just sat in tapas bars and ate really nice food and drank some lovely wine. So I'm not complaining. Victor, listen, I know you've had quite a hectic day, and I know your schedule is really super busy at the moment. So I just want to thank you for taking the time and being involved in Abstrato and being an ambassador from an end user perspective, and also for this video. Hopefully, we'll do many more. They'll be slightly longer. As I get a bit better at this, then we'll do some longer ones, and we'll start covering off some of the topics that you cover in your newsletter. I'll ask one of the guys to make sure that we get the link on this video for your newsletter as well. But yeah, thank you once again. Really appreciate you coming onto this video.
Yeah, Steve. No, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man.